When you look at the various racial and ethnic groups in the US, by far the largest one is the Hispanic population. As of the 2020 US Census, 18% of the population is Hispanic or Latino. And this number is only growing. Another analysis from the US Census showed that 1 in 4 children in the US are Latino. As a brand, particularly if you are marketing to consumers in the US, know that having a sound understanding of how to market to the Latino population is increasingly becoming more important. To help you navigate how to market to this growing customer base, I sat down with Federico Gagliardone, COO at MECENAS, a minority-owned publishing and full-stack media company that connects brands with US, Hispanic, and multicultural communities. Let's get to it. Hey, Federico, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you?
Hi, Sonia. Thank you for having me. I'm great. I love meeting fellow multicultural marketers, champions, however we want to call ourselves. So thank you for inviting me.
Totally my pleasure. Well, I learned some really fun things about you as we were getting started. But before we get too far into it, tell the people, who are you and what do you do?
My name is Federico. I don't know if I should burden you with my last name, which is a very complicated Italian Argentinian last name. I'll do it, but my name is Federico Gagliardone. I'm actually originally from Argentina. I've been living in the US for a long time, and I'm a partner and CEO at Mecenas Media, a multicultural content and marketing company. And over the last 15 years, I've been helping or trying to help brands engage with US Hispanics in a meaningful way through a combination of marketing, technology, and content, and so forth.
Very cool. I love the work that you are doing. We found that common thread of Buenos Aires and Argentina. So that
Argentinian,
was
yes.
just, it was very cool. I wish I would have known like further in advance. I would have prepared myself a mate. We could be drinking mate at the
I
same
know,
time.
I'm right here. Okay, it comes with me everywhere I go. In
All
fact, if you
right.
have time for a bit of a cultural, detail, I can tell you
Yes.
later how mate was born because I think
Okay.
it's an interesting story.
Definitely. Okay. Remind me at the end when we'll definitely cover it. All right. So you are a partner, as you mentioned, in a minority owned publishing and media company. Why is there a need for minority owned media and publishing companies?
Oh, do we have like 3 hours? This is the story of my life. That's why we created Mecenas. So I think overall, minorities have been overlooked for a long time in the US. And I think there are like two different things that actually brought us to create Mecenas. On one side, minorities are becoming a bigger portion of the US. We are a minority. We're Hispanics. I'm Argentinian. My partner is Argentinian. So we really care about our culture. And then one thing that we have been seeing, and mostly maybe after the things that happened with Black Lives Matter, which actually I think led to an approach of all minorities matter. And I believe the last few years have seen a change in the way some brands and agencies see minorities. And we felt that there was a need to kind of help those brands engage with Hispanics in an authentic way. Because I feel that there are a lot of different pieces out there, and some marketers or agencies that don't really know how to put them together. So I think they need of people like you or me to help them understand our communities.
Yeah. Yeah. I read somewhere that brands spend somewhere around 5% of their media spend with minority owned media companies. And that's like all minorities, put together, not just one of them. And whenever brands are looking to target consumers or engage consumers, particularly those from underrepresented and underserved communities, should they be looking specifically to reach them through a media source or a content source by is owned by that community?
Absolutely. In fact, when you look at the data, we know that in just a few years, America is going to be multicultural. So right now, I think all minorities combined are 48% of the population. So in a few years, we're going to be 52.
Yeah.
So America is going to be bicultural. And when you start looking at the breakdown of those different communities, you see, as an example, Hispanics, which is what I've been doing for a long time. We're almost at 20% of the population. However, as you said it, we get less than 5% of marketing budgets. And even, I
Right.
mean, you can actually take this story to Hollywood and representation in movies. Like, it
Yep.
happens everywhere, right?
Yep.
And one thing that I see for certain is that the brands that are not investing in minorities, not just Hispanics in general, are really missing out. And the ones that do actually are rewarded with tremendous growth.
Yeah.
So I do think that they should be looking at different ways of engaging with these minorities, specifically through media, content, technology in general.
Absolutely. All right. So the Hispanic community is super diverse, right? Like I know that a lot of times people they might put one idea, and that's not just for the Hispanic community. It exists for a lot of different ones. Like there's a number of different intersectionalities and other things like that. So I'm curious, can you talk a little bit about the different forms of diversity that exist that impacts the ways in which brands are should be engaging the Hispanic community specifically?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. In fact, maybe this is not a widely known fact, but as opposed to maybe other minorities, Hispanics are very fragmented, right? Like, we're not a monolith. So there are
Yeah,
a lot of nuances to culture, to country of origin, to the way we consume content. It's not the same being Peruvian, Mexican, Argentinian,
yeah,
Colombian, right?
yeah,
There are different approaches to the way all those different micro communities actually consume content, what they're interested in. And there are a lot of insights that we actually have gotten from having a direct to consumer brand for such a long time. So we could engage in conversations and understand what people liked, what they didn't like, create our own content calendar to engage with them. And I think it's very important to understand not only those nuances, but also the matter of language. There's another misconception, which is, okay, Hispanic is Spanish. That's not necessarily the truth. One thing that we know is, I told you about, like, we're almost 20% of the population. There are some mind blowing facts that I love. I don't know if you know this. So when I learned this, it's like, is this true? I had to check it out like many times to make sure that it was true. So Hispanics represent 50% of the population growth, meaning that out of every two
yeah.
babies born in the US, one is from Latino descent.
Wow.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But that means that, of course, Hispanics are becoming younger and younger, and also more bilingual. We really don't like talking about acculturation because I don't think culture has anything to do with it. It's just
Hmm.
language preference. And so when you're thinking about how to approach Hispanics, one thing is country of origin, language preference, because again, the younger generations, of course, are more bilingual or English dumb than older generations that prefer Spanish and also know a bit of English. So there's a lot of different nuances in kind of crafting ideas to engage with them in a way that I think needs to be authentic, because we
Yeah.
also, as minorities, react to authentic content, that, to brands that care, that actually have, our interest in mind, as opposed to just throwing ads everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I'm super curious because you've done so much of this work and have been entrenched it for such a long period of time. Are there any misconceptions about the Hispanic community that you once and for all want people to just shut down, stop thinking of it, stop putting it in your marketing? Is there anything that you just feel like I wish people would stop doing this or stop thinking this?
Yes, actually, there are a few. Language is one, like I just mentioned. I think thinking that Hispanic is Spanish is a misconception. It could be anything. In fact, we're more and more, as we create content, embedding, intertwining Spanglish
Yeah.
everywhere. In fact, recently we just did an amazing show, talking sabor with Pepsi. You can see it on Hulu with Aaron Sanchez, superstar Master Chef co-host. And one thing that I love about that show specifically is that language flows. it's not Spanish or English. It's kind of a mix, and
Yeah.
people react the way they want to react to whatever is being said. So
Yeah.
that's when you can see the genuine way in which they feel about something, whether there's a joke and they may react with something, oh, vamos, increíble, like in Spanish or in English. So that's one thing that I love. So language is one misconception. There's another one which is, I don't know if we should say this in the podcast so you can edit this afterwards, but this thing that Hispanics are like second class citizens, that
Mhm.
they are actually like behind McDonald's, which is there's nothing bad with that, but and people think about Hispanics are okay, Hispanics are whether working the land or like working at a restaurant, which may be the case for a lot of Hispanics, but there's also elevation in the culture. And when we actually created our Mecenas, our company with Cocina specifically, which focuses on food, we wanted to show, I would say, the US and the world what us Latinos are capable of. And if you go
Yeah.
check out our website, and if you like food content, you'll see that there's elevation in the way we shoot our recipes, the way we shoot content, and that's something that we also wanted to do, uplifting the Hispanic spirit in a way where people would see, okay, yeah, the Hispanics are not what I thought they were.
Yeah.
They're much more. So those are two things that I usually hear a lot about. That I mean, whenever I can, I talk about it because I think it's a misconception of Hispanics as a community.
Yeah, no, I love both of those. It's interesting. I was kind of laughing to myself because my daughter Luna, she's 4 and she speaks Spanglish, right? Like, so last night she's like, I want to take a bath después la cena, right? Like, and so she's mixing it all together in a way that makes sense for her as she's learning and growing. And I just feel like for a lot of people, like you said, there's no formula. It's just the way things pop up in their heads. There's a preference. There's just how it feels. So I love to see more brands starting to incorporate that in their marketing. Do you have any specific trends that you want people to be aware of as it relates to engaging with the Hispanic community?
Yeah, there are a few interesting ones. Still talking about like mind blowing, details and insights. I'm kind of a numbers guy, and but I like when numbers speak and they tell a story. So one thing that has been a trend for a while, and could also maybe be a part of your previous question, the misconception, but it's also a trend, which is Hispanics actually over-index in technology adoption in general, in
Mhm.
mobile specifically. Like we know that in terms of particularly mobile device use, we over-index by almost 12% the other mobile users. This, I think, is an important fact to understand how to craft content for Hispanics in a way that actually is organic. So mobile first, digital first. And one thing that is not widely known also is that we tend to live in multi-generational houses. So we over-index there. So we live with our parents, our grandparents. Um, and when you add the fact that we are kind of considered, or we consider ourselves to be natural influencers, because we actually, when we're buying something, we want people to have a say, and we ask for opinions, and then maybe it's the son recommending like a mobile device to the parents or grandparents. So that becomes like it becomes almost like everything, every message that you give to the US Hispanic population, it's elevated to the power of Latino, right? Like we
Mhm.
just share the message, which is I think a nice community story, but also it's interesting as a marketer.
All right, so you just mentioned community. And I think that a lot of times when brands are starting to engage different communities, specifically those that are underrepresented and underserved, they just start marketing. Maybe they change things up from a representation standpoint, but it's all very, for me, it feels very transactional. And I know you've been involved in some projects where it has really been about helping brands uplift and support communities. Can you just talk a little bit about why it's important not to just say, hey, buy my stuff, and actually build relationships that uplift, support, and advance the community, specifically with issues that are important to them?
Absolutely. In fact, it all starts with what you just said, which is community. There's community impact in general for any brand. I think should be always considered as part of the approach, as opposed to, yeah, this is my product, buy it, right? Like these are the features. That's not the way. Not even has Hispanics. Like that's not the way we as a community engage with products anymore.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to buy a phone because it has like the best camera or whatever. Usually, like what sells you is, oh, I can shoot my baby running, in the ground with this amazing camera. So there's a story behind the product, right? And I think that's even more true when you think about minorities, specifically Hispanics. They do care more and more about the intentions, let's say, behind whatever a brand wants to communicate. And I think it's very important to understand that the most organic way, or let's say the most authentic way in engaging through content is the way that actually ends up selling, if that makes sense. Because we're talking about
Hmm.
selling, but also creating the story behind it, and we there's data that actually backs this up. Like people in general are not buying products just because of the price or features. There has to be a
Yeah.
story behind that, and if that story comes with this community, element, all for the better.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100% agree with you. Do you have any best practices that you'd like to share for marketers who are getting started engaging the Hispanic community?
Yeah. So one thing that I believe has been a good change, and I think there's room for everybody in the marketplace. So I think we could all share. Um, but I like the fact that over the last few years, there has been a shift in trying to leverage the power of minority-owned companies. Like we are a
Hmm.
minority-owned certified company, but what I mean by that specifically is go to the people that actually are your target.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with going to the big companies out there, but I think there's a place for everybody. And I believe that when you're thinking about pointers to engage with this community is, okay, talk to that people, as opposed to going to company X targeting Hispanics with
Yeah.
technology. Talk to the people that actually are part of the culture,
Yeah.
so that you understand. I give you an example. A few years ago, we were working with a brand, specifically food content, and they wanted to reach out to older generations of Hispanic selling a specific product. And so they wanted to craft, or they wanted us to craft a campaign for them, which we, of course, were happy to do. But the insights were telling us, hey, you know what? This generation prefers to see content in Spanish or a mix, not English. And because this company had already like a preset, group of different creatives in English, they say, no, it has to be English. And we ended up saying, like, I mean, that won't render any results for you. Like,
Right.
uh, and we were trying to push them in that way, like gently pushing in that way. And they decided not to go with us and to do it with somebody else, just to run those ads. And
Right.
that's a crazy story. Like, it's like, oh my God, like, how is it possible? Like, and I think that may be kind of a pointer, because maybe some other company would say, yeah, run your ads, which of course we can do. But don't you want to see a return on the ad spend on the other side as well? Like, we can help.
Yeah, I think we see that a lot, right? Where when people are thinking about their Hispanic strategy, and you said this earlier, it's, oh, we're going to do translations. It's so much more than translations. But
Mhm.
I think sometimes, like you said, it's not about taking what you already do and then just tweaking it for this community. Sometimes it means like completely abandoning what you're already doing or what you're accustomed to doing and starting with this community first in terms of like we're doing specific content. I remember I was talking to my husband and he was telling me about this story, um this kind of famous story in Argentina, and he was like, because in Netflix they do a lot of local content specifically for the community. or the different markets that they're in, because they want to make sure that they're having these local sort of stories and content that is very relatable to the community. And it's one of those things where, how do we start thinking about creating original content where you have the resources that resonates, and so it's not like you're trying to repurpose something that you've already created, not with the community in mind, but you're developing content, resources, products specifically for this community. And people can really tell the difference whenever it's something that was created for them, by people who are part of the community, versus something that we're like trying to send to you after the fact.
Absolutely. I think it goes back to what you and I were discussing like 5 minutes ago, which is this cultural nuances. It's true for the different groups of Hispanics, and it's true for every community in itself, like in and out of itself. Like I can't, and that's one of the things that we always try to do, making sure that at least if we're going to deliver a message, because we need to send our kids to college, so we need to make money off of it. But let's make sure that it's impactful, that it makes sense for that specific audience. Like if somebody came to me with an idea to reach African American or Asian communities, I would say, like, look, I don't really know. Like, I can't tell you that. Yeah, let's translate or whatever, or let's change images. Like, I don't think that really cuts it.
Yeah.
Same thing for Hispanics. Like, it's almost applying the Google Translate version of marketing. I don't think
Yeah.
it really does the job. I mean, we could always do it, but
Yeah.
does it really drive any meaning to the target and to the brand? Probably not. I don't think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. All right. So along those same lines, I want to switch gears a little bit. I have a few sort of quick fire questions. I want to hear, like, what is your take or what is your point of view? So the first one is, what should marketers, how should they refer to the community? We hear Hispanic, we hear Latino, we hear Latinx, we hear Latine. There might be some other ones. What should we say and why?
So I think it depends on. It happens to me with my daughters all the time. Like I hear them speak, and sometimes I say, "Oh no, I'm messing up. I'm not saying it the right way," because there are so many different ways of saying things right now. And maybe for people like me, I would say, like, I think I'm older than you, so like I'm usually like thinking, okay, this is what I learned, and this is how it's said or done today. So I need to kind of adjust my approach. So with Hispanics, I think it's the same. So Hispanic has always been like the formal term, the US
Okay.
Hispanic, and that involves like the whole community. I think we're fine with Latinos too and Latinx when you're not speaking about gender or anything else. So I think all three can work depending on the environment. But I
Okay.
don't think anybody will be offended by any of those three. So
Okay. Um, what is your take on AI Spanish translations?
that's a hot topic. I would say I'm in general opposed to translation by itself, whether it's AI or some other type of translation. It's fun. Sometimes it's funny to see the outcome of like, oh, we have this, group or set of creatives that needs to be translated into Spanish. And there are some words that actually don't have a translation, or the meaning is different. So I think AI actually is an amazing tool, and we're using it in different stages of the work that we do, like from sales to actually helping us sort out content and optimizing for insights. But then I still believe, and again, maybe old age again, I believe that the human element is so important, even as of today. Basically, because what you and I were saying before, like, there are cultural nuances in how you read and interpret a message, whether you're Hispanic, Spanish down, English down, or bilingual. So I think like AI is good for a lot of things. I think the cultural nuances are still not there.
Got it. Got it. All right. Subtitling versus dubbing. Do you have an opinion or preference when it comes to content?
I do. So in Argentina, I don't know if you know this. So in Argentina, we get all of our cartoons dubbed when we're kids,
The Simpsons, right?
The Simpsons, like all of those cartoons are dubbed, but they are dubbed in Mexico. So
Oh,
our kids in general grow up speaking like Mexicans until they are like maybe 6 or 7, but then like they will use like neutral Spanish, which is it's funny to see. Oh, hagamos esto, estamos aquí, instead of estamos acá, which is the Argentinian way,
sí,
right?
sí.
So I think um, and again it depends on the target, right? Like in general I prefer subtitles because I think they give you an idea of the original language in which the content was recorded, and then you can read. But I know a lot of people don't like reading, so I think dubbing is fine for some cases. But I would say like dubbing should be probably like more nuanced to the culture, like as
Yeah.
opposed to Argentinians growing up speaking like Mexicans until they are like 10.
Yeah, no, no, totally get that. They should definitely do it and hopefully put it with an Argentine accent. So yeah, it's very localized. All right. And then the last one would just be, and I think we might have covered this before, but just any stereotypes or tropes that you're just tired of seeing and that you just don't want to see anymore. You're over it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much like language, technology, and buying power. I would say
Okay.
those are the three things that I usually see as the misconceptions or stereotypes
Okay.
with Hispanics. And when you look at again going back to the data, but buying power, we're commanding like 2.5 trillion numbers that I don't even get. $2.5 trillion of buying power. And they're affluent Hispanic like pretty much everywhere. So I think again there's a misconception, and I think it may happen to all minorities at some point. They are like put in one specific silo where like we're so many different things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. Um, Yeah, I think there's a lot of tired things. I remember a story where Jonathan was telling me about the movie Man on Fire, where there was a with Denzel Washington and Mark Anthony is in it. And he was telling me there was a famous Argentine actor who turned down the role because he was just so annoyed with the stereotype that Latinos are always drug lords or into drugs in some way, and he just didn't want to be a part of that anymore. And so him taking the role would have just continued to perpetuate it. And so internally he was just like, oh, I can't do it anymore. But yeah, I've seen a number of those types of things, even with the black community as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it happens everywhere. Like I would think like any Colombian that is offered like a drug dealer, like part is like, come on, dude. Like it's we're not all that, and
Yeah.
Argentinians same thing. Like it's. I agree 100%. I think that's why going back to what you asked before, whenever there are brands trying to engage or connect with these audiences, like go to I don't like saying experts, but just go to the people that are part of your target so that
Yeah.
you at least get an authentic result out of what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Can you tell me about a time when a brand made you specifically as a consumer feel like you belonged?
That's a good question. I think there was a Target campaign. Like I know Target went through like a lot of different issues last year, but I, I when I moved here, my kids were very young. So at some point, like running to Target was a thing, like where we would get like the toilet paper and they would just see other stuff. Um, and I remember like of the signage that they had, like whereas I thought like okay, here in the US, general market is one thing, and that's what you see everywhere. And I remember seeing like maybe like 6 7 years ago the pictures that were shown were not just of like what you would consider like Caucasian the Caucasian group, like they had like different things, African American, Hispanic, like and I felt okay, well this feels more inclusive. Then we need to talk about whether like all Hispanics look the same way, all African American, like that's a different conversation. But at least what I appreciated at that time was okay, there's an intention, you know
Yeah.
and I would say like I think that's important. And then one thing that I definitely like is when talking about Hispanics, when they are actually being featured in big movies or series, like um, for example, you have Andor with Diego Luna, like different actors that are actually part of something where they're not playing the Hispanic part. They're like
Yeah.
just a character, you know.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that.
Yeah, yeah. When they do representation, it doesn't feel tokenistic, right? Like
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Totally get
exactly.
that. All right, where can people find you or find the work, some of the like all the great work that you're doing? You mentioned your cooking series and your show and all. Where can people find like all the things, all the great stuff that you're doing?
Thank you for asking that. So I would say a good place to start would be Cocina. We are cocina.com, and then socials everywhere. That's actually how we started. And thinking about authenticity, food was the first thing that came to mind when trying to take this, big idea of like a huge undertaking, which is okay, how do we connect brands and the audience to Hispanic culture? So food was the first thing. So Cocina, which we created with Aaron Sanchez, became kind of the first of many brands that were to come that Mecenas owns, right? So we are Cocina.com would be the first one. Then there's a new brand that actually we soft launched a few months ago, which I think is something that the market desperately needs, which is called Starpix, starpix.tv. And Starpix is what we like calling like the ultimate content discovery tool. Because if you think about it this way, maybe you'll know when I say this. Like picture yourself Friday night. You're already finished binge watching whatever series you were binge watching. You don't know what you're going to watch next. So you sit with your husband, you turn on the TV, you flip through Netflix, Apple, Hulu, whatever that is, and you turn it off. 15 minutes later, very frustrated. You know what to watch. There's so much stuff out there. It's like, oh, I don't know. Like, if nobody recommended a series to you, you're not being binge watching anything. It's like, okay, what do I watch now? Because there's an overwhelming amount of content out there. So we created star picks for your stars picking the content for you. So if you're a fan of,
Nice.
let's say, an Aaron Sanchez or Chiquis Rivera, like she's a music icon for Hispanics, you like them, you follow them on social. When they say, "Hey, go to my Starbucks channel and see what I like watching on my free time," probably your interest is going to be picked. So you
Yeah.
go there and you start enjoying. And Aaron Sanchez, as an example, likes Viking stuff, like history stuff, not just like food shows, right? So I think those are two brands that we really love that are like direct to consumer brands. And then, of course, our mecenasgroup.com, that's our company where we have all our pillars, like our own brands, plus our media platform, our content studios, our gaming division.
Wow.
Our mission of uplifting Hispanics has gone through all different passion points. I don't like the word passion points, but the different facets of being Hispanic, right?
Yeah.
Food, entertainment, music, gaming, sports. So hopefully, there are a few of those websites that can be checked by the audience here.
Well, I will definitely put all those links to them in the show notes so people can access it easily and check it out. I definitely want to go and see what kind of stuff you'll have on Cocina. I imagine there are some asado related
Or
things on there, right? So,
there's the origin of mate too. Like, there's so much stuff, like cultural stuff, like so.
all
Absolutely.
right. All right. Well, before we get to your parting words of wisdom, please tell us the origins of mate. I want to hear about it.
Oh, thank you for asking. So I think it's a beautiful story. So I don't know if you know. This is like mate for everybody that doesn't know. It's kind of like tea leaves in a cup. Like, and this straw has a filter. The beautiful thing, I believe, is that it's more like a ritual that you actually make your mate and then you share with friends, usually with friends, and we drink from the same straw, which kind of brings this idea of community, right? You're sharing like something that is very intimate, like you're sharing this with your friends. Usually, you wouldn't go give this to people walking on the street, but your friends you would do. And this actually was born out of the native people in Argentina way back, the Guaraníes. They were like a tribe, and they had this sense of community too. And what happened is when somebody died in the tribe, they would bury that person, but they would have this deep feeling of loss because there was almost like a part of their body that was gone. Because again, this community, everybody owns everything. Like they share everything. Um, so what they did is they started planting the seed for something that then became mate. And once the plant grew, they would actually boil water, put the leaves in there, and drink them together. And they felt that the person that was buried there was now a part of them, so they carried that
Oh,
person with them. And that plant that had like this weird name, Plantis yerbalis, I don't know what,
right.
became yerba mate, which is what's in here. And that was the origin of mate, like boiling the water, putting the leaves there, but then sharing with other people. And it's almost like we all share this as a community. So that's
Yeah.
kind of a story that I
Very
like.
cool. Very cool. All right. Question for you. You may think this is blasphemy. Do you put sugar in your mate or no?
I need to leave now. No, no, I think my brother is here visiting for my birthday. Today is my birthday, by the way.
Oh, happy birthday, feliz cumple.
Yeah, thank you, gracias. And so my brother is here. He drinks mate with sugar, and I
Okay.
don't. So we usually try to share the one that has a less bit of sugar for me. But I think it's for everybody. Some people drink like cold mate, which is like
Terere.
a thing. Yeah, tereré, very good. Yeah, yeah. So I think mate is mate. Like everybody can drink any way they want. I prefer it like with no sugar. This is actually one of my birthday gifts for my mom.
Very cool. Very cool. Federico, this has been so much fun. I learned so much. Any parting words of wisdom for marketers and business leaders who want to do a better job of marketing to Hispanic consumers and serving them as customers?
Uh, Thank you so much. First of all, thank you, Sonia. I had a lot of fun, and I was not expecting the Argentinian background that you have. That was amazing. I mean, you were telling me that you lived like 4 years in Argentina, which to me was incredible. And in terms of things to consider, I would say I think you touched on a few of those. Like the first one is whenever you want to craft campaigns or reach Hispanics or say minorities. Make sure that you engage with that target, like whether it's African American, Hispanics. Like just talk to the people that actually can help you market to those people in a meaningful way. That's number one. And I think number two is technology is great, but and I think we are all I think going down that route where technology is a bigger part. Like for us, targeting and having all data, it's super important. But it has to be a human element. Like tagging to the first item, like if you talk to people that are part of the target, then they can employ technology even better. So I think those are two things that I would love to tell people out there. And the last one is you have to have a minority approach to your marketing. I think multicultural marketing shouldn't be multicultural marketing; it should be just marketing. That means allocate whatever you need to allocate to the different minorities, and I can guarantee that your brand is going to be rewarded with growth, no doubt.
Absolutely. Very well said. Thank you again, Federico. This has been so valuable. And enjoy the rest
Thank
of
you,
your birthday.
thank you so much.
I love so much of what Federico had to say, and I'm curious what was most insightful for you. Drop me a line in the comments below, and let's continue the conversation about what you're going to do for your brand to authentically engage the Latino community. Also, if you like this episode, go ahead and give it a like and hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode of the Inclusion and Marketing Podcast, as well as any of the other episodes that I'll publish for you on how to attract and retain a diverse customer base for your brand. Until next time, remember, everyone deserves to have a place where they belong. Let's use our individual and collective power to ensure more people feel like they do. Thanks so much for listening. Talk to you soon.